So these videos are to get you ready for our Paper 2 Computer Science exam that is coming up on the 6th of March. So we'll talk about all of the things that we can do on the night before to get prepared. So firstly, try to answer every question. I know that sounds simple, but time and time again I see that this doesn't happen. You're all intelligent people, and I know that there will be something in the back of your mind that will resonate with what you are reading in the question, so at least attempt it. You can't lose marks for writing an answer. So attempt the questions even if you're not sure, because quite often there might be something in what you've written that may score 1 or 2 marks, which will help with your final grade. So try to answer everything. Also, if the question requires you to do some calculation like answering binary numbers, you can show your calculations and still get marks even if your answer is wrong, just like in maths. So at least put something on the paper to show that you have some understanding, or that you attempted to answer or calculate the answer to a question. And finally, when you're doing the long mark question, sort of 9 markers or anything more than a 9-mark question, try to give as much detail or information that you can remember about the topic as you can. Just putting information on there will get marks, but also we'll talk more later about how we can approach this style of question, but try to get as much information as you can. So here are the units that are covered in this exam. I'm not going to go through them all now, you can read them on the screen, but if you need to, or if there's anything there that you're sort of panicking about, then do have a quick look over them. Not all of the classes have finished Unit 7 and Unit 8, so if you're one of those classes, don't panic too much. Okay, focus on the areas that you know well, and we will obviously have this ready for the final exam, but for now, try and get the areas that you do know. Okay, I've made a few notes about all of the different areas and what's covered in them, so have a look, see where there maybe are some gaps or something that you remember doing but aren't too sure about. You've got the resources at home, maybe have a quick look through those, but we've got data representation, computer systems, networks, cybersecurity, databases, and ethical and legal issues, and that's what will be coming up in the exam that you're going to be sitting this time around. And I've just put a few tips here as well. So the first thing is, remember in binary, 1 + 1 is 1, 0, 1 add 1 is 1, 1, and if that is slightly confusing, remember 1, 0 is the equivalent to 2, okay, and 1, 1 is the equivalent to 3. But just remember to carry those binary bits over when you're doing the addition, and again, if it's a calculation question, show that. You will get marks, possibly for just carrying over the 1 in the correct position, even if your answer isn't correct. So show that in your calculations. Also, when asked to change units, remember there are 8 bits to a byte. So if you're converting bits to a byte, you would divide by 8. If you are converting bytes to kilobytes, there's 1,000 bytes to every kilobyte. So again, we divide that by 1,000. And the same again for megabytes. And at this point, even if we went up to gigabyte or terabyte, we just keep it's 1,000 of each unit. Don't forget there are 4 layers of the TCP IP model. We've got application, transport, internet, and link layers. Again, if you're not too sure, have a little look around them, but I've put a protocol or one of the rules next to them. So HTTP for the application layer, transport is TCP, internet is IP, and link is Ethernet. There's always a question in every year around the 4-layer model, so have something prepared, or at least know the protocols for those 4. Also, make sure you, in your own mind, know the difference between hardware and software. This will be in the exam, not necessarily a question directly at one of them, but there will be a question around understanding the definition of these 2. So make sure you know the differences. And also with fetch, decode, execute, remember it's that way around, and we are fetching, decoding, and executing instructions. Also remember that protocols are just rules, okay? Just like the school uniform protocol is just the school uniform rules. And I've also made a little SQL pattern for us. Remember, it's select, from, where, and order. And if you can't remember that, remember that seals fight when online. So we'll quickly discuss how to approach the long questions. There might be 1 or 2. There tends to be a couple in this paper. So firstly, I would say plan the question. Just take a minute, okay, and write just a couple of notes about what you intend to do in the question. Put it on the back pages and refer to it. I'd suggest that you always start with an introduction that summarises the question. So if the question was about something to do with autonomous vehicles, I've put an answer here like many people are now using autonomous cars in today's society. This is both positive and has both positive and negative impacts, and then you're in with your discussion. Make sure you also list all the factors that affect the question. So if it was about autonomous cars, I might sort of list some laws that are problematic. I might talk about possibly the hardware or the robustness of cars and how they protect people. So make sure you list factors that affect the question you're being asked. Obviously, you should be discussing the positives and negatives of whatever the question is talking about. And once you've listed and discussed and compared some of the positive and negatives, you should then conclude your answer and talk about your opinion. And don't just say what your opinion is. Use the word because. I think this because. Okay, it's really important that you put that to get those sort of last few marks in this question. And just some final tips, okay? Remember to read the command words. If you've got an exam question, it says state, it means give a direct answer, okay? If it says define, give a definition. So if it says define what software is or define what hardware is, it's asking you to define what those words mean. Describe means mention some of the features of that particular word or concept that it's asking you about. Explain would mean to give details and examples as well about that concept. Break it down. How does something work step by step? So if it's a question about processors, maybe you're going to talk about the 3 steps of fetch, decode, execute in your explanation. And lastly, when we talk about discuss, this is going to be reserved probably for the long mark questions. And remember, you need to talk about both sides of the argument. Don't just talk about one. Don't just say something is great. Talk about why it's also not great. The positives and the negatives and how those affect computers, people, or any other factors that the question has asked you to highlight. So discuss should be for the longer answers. And once again, I'm going to say it again, please answer every question. Even if you're unsure, you cannot lose marks from trying. Good luck, everyone. I know you're going to do really well, and I look forward to seeing the papers and going through them with you when they're all marked.